You woke up a beast and you pissed off the wrong daddy.
A grieving father lets lawmakers know just how angry he is after his daughter's senseless murder during a burglary.
That's all she ever wanted to do was visit friends. And she literally was executed while on her knees, begging for her life.
I talk with Steve Federico about the murder of his daughter, Logan, why it was entirely preventable, and the big gaffe from a congresswoman that set him off.
Oh, I'm sorry. I am so sorry.
Okay.
Welcome to Crime Fix. I'm Angenette Levy. It's been nearly 5 months since Logan Federico's parents found out that their beautiful daughter, Logan, had been senselessly murdered in Columbia, South Carolina. Logan was just 22 years old and an aspiring teacher from North Carolina. She went to Columbia for the weekend to hang out with friends. It's something kids do. She never came home, and police say a man with a long rap sheet murdered Logan during a burglary. Logan's dad, Steve, is going to join me here shortly to reveal new information that he's learned about her case. Now, Logan was in a house with friends back in May when Columbia police say Alexander Dickey broke in and shot Logan during this burglary spree. Before murdering Logan, police said Dickey had stolen a car and broken into another house. I told you back in July about the missteps uncovered by a news outlet in South Carolina related to Dickey. He actually has 39 arrests, some for burglary dating back to 2014. WIS TV reporter Cynthia Beasley first discovered missteps with Dickey. He was charged in 2015 with burglary and then the next year with burglary. And one of those charges was actually dropped, and he pleaded guilty to a first offense, third-degree burglary, despite pleading guilty months earlier in another case. Then in 2023, Dickey was arrested for burglary again and got a light sentence. Solicitor Rick Hubbard issued a statement earlier this year saying, like all prosecutors, our assistant solicitor who handled the 2024 burglary third charge relied on Dickey's rap sheet. For some reason unknown to us, Dickey's rap sheet does not include any prior burglary convictions. Other agencies are responsible for the data on rap sheets. Therefore, our assistant solicitor proceeded on the burglary third as a first offense. There was no sentencing negotiations on this charge. Dickey was facing a potential sentence of up to 5 years. Sentencing was in the judge's discretion. So let's say that Dickey had gotten that 5-year sentence. Logan Federico would likely still be alive today. There's been a lot of finger pointing back and forth between agencies about why Dickey's criminal rap sheet appeared to be incomplete, not showing some of the arrests out of Lexington and Lexington County, because he received these lighter sentences based on that. Well, South Carolina's law enforcement division said it didn't receive his fingerprints from some of his arrests, so Dickey's rap sheet wasn't updated. This week, Logan's father, Steve, testified in front of the U.S. House Judiciary subcommittee, and he did not hold back.
How many of y'all have kids? I'm just curious. Here's what I need you to do. When I tell you this story, think about your kids. Think about your child coming home from a night out with their friends, laying down, going to sleep, feeling somebody come in the room and wake them and drag her out of bed, naked, forced on her knees with her hands over her head, begging for her life, begging for her hero, her father, me, that couldn't be there. She was 5'3". She weighed 115 pounds. Bang! Dead. Gone. Why? Because Alexander Devontae Dickey, who was arrested 39 times, 25 felonies, was on the street. How about that? How good are we doing for our family? How good are you doing for your kids? He should have been in jail for over 140 years for all the crimes he committed. You know how much time he spent in prison? a little over 600 days in 10 years. He's only 30 years old. He was committing 2.65 crimes a year since he was 15 years old, but nobody could figure out that he couldn't be rehabilitated. Well, you'd have to put him in prison to see if he could be rehabilitated. Isn't that the idea of prison? But no, my daughter wanted to be a teacher. She finally figured it out 2 weeks before she was executed.
Steve Federico's testimony continued, and he directed his anger at lawmakers who he believes have weakened laws to hold criminals accountable.
Executed while on her knees, begging for her life. Her name's Logan Federico, not Iryna. And you will not forget her. I promise you. You will be sick and tired of my face and my voice until this gets fixed. I will fight until my last breath for my daughter. You need to fight for the rest of our children, the rest of the innocents, and stop protecting the people that keep taking them from us. Please. You have the power. We put you in the power to do what you have to do. We're asking you, we're begging you all to stop this. 39 crimes in 10 years, 25 felonies. Can anybody here explain to me, well, how possibly he could be on the street? Possibly be on the street. How is it possible? I could sit down in a room and I could explain the whole process of how it failed, how South Carolina failed, Logan, okay? How lack of communication. What y'all did, you woke up a beast and you pissed off the wrong daddy. Because I'm going to put it out there, and I'm not going to be quiet until somebody helps. Logan deserves to be heard.
Getting injured can be very scary, and if it ever happens to you, you might need a lawyer who can fight for you. Morgan & Morgan is a law firm with more than 1,000 lawyers because they win a lot, recovering millions and millions of dollars for their clients. In the last few months, a client in Florida got $12 million after the insurance company offered just $350,000. In Pennsylvania, a client was awarded $26 million. That was 40 times the insurer's $650,000 offer. And in another case, a client in PA received $29 million after being offered only $500,000. Even if you think your case is not worth millions, why not start a claim and fight for what you deserve? Morgan & Morgan makes it truly so easy. You can start a claim from your phone right here in just 8 clicks. It's just that easy. So if you're ever hurt, start a claim at forthepeople.com/crimefix or click the link below or scan that QR code that you see right there on your screen. Steve Federico, he was very angry during that hearing on Monday, and it made him even angrier when Congresswoman Deborah Ross confused Logan with another murder victim who lived in North Carolina. Her name is Iryna Zarutska. She's a refugee from Ukraine whose throat was slit on a train in Charlotte in August. Police say the person who killed her was DeCarlos Brown, a man with a very long rap sheet whose family claims he has a history of mental health issues.
I also want to express my gratitude to those of our witnesses who have lost loved ones to crime or who were victims themselves. Your courage in telling your stories and having your voices heard is so, so important, and my heart goes out to you. Before I get started, I also want to express my deepest, deepest condolences to the family of Iryna Zarutska. What happened to her is simply unimaginable and unconscionable. And I hope that we will take to heart her family's request not to remember her by her last moments or politicize her death, but instead to remember her as the vibrant and exceptionally kind person she was. And I'm thrilled that we have a picture of her in that state right in front of us.
So here's the problem. It was not Iryna's photo. It was Logan's photo. that Congresswoman Ross was referring to, and that did not sit well with Steve Federico, who corrected her moments later. Take a look.
To be honest, and for our victims, this hearing is too little, too late. We should have been doing more to prevent crime and address the lack of mental health care long before this hearing, particularly.
My daughter. This isn't Iryna.
Oh, I'm sorry.
This is my daughter.
I am so sorry.
Okay?
I am so sorry.
This is Logan Federico.
Thank you so much for bringing that. Thank you. Thank you, sir. I am so sorry for you.
And she was before Iryna.
I am so
4 months before.
I'm so sorry for your loss, and my heart goes out to you. My heart goes out to you.
How dare you not know her?
So we should have been doing things to prevent Logan's death and Iryna's death, and I am so sorry.
So I want to bring in Steve Federico. He is Logan Federico's father. And Steve, thank you for coming back on. I know we have spoken once before. Tell me, how are you doing? Because I know you said this has been a difficult morning. You had a difficult Monday in front of that subcommittee for the House Judiciary Committee. So how are you doing right now? Because I know this does not get any easier as the days pass.
It actually gets harder, but the more I talk about it, the more I relive it. It just kind of beats you up mentally every day, but it's something I have to do. The committee meeting was big. It turned a little different for me. It got a little intense. I was well prepared for a meeting. I had a team that helped me prepare for the meeting, had a very well-written statement that I really wanted to read. But when one of the committee members mistakenly took Logan for Iryna, it kind of set me off into another dimension. Not only was it offensive to me and my family that was there, but can you imagine being there and you hear these people arguing for Iryna about, lack of money, lack of DAs, and lack of everything else. And here's this representative on the committee looking at Logan. She doesn't even recognize Iryna. I felt horrible for my daughter, but it felt even worse for Iryna. I mean, it was absolutely pathetic.
Especially for somebody who, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but she represents the state of North Carolina.
My
Representative
point exactly.
Ross.
My point exactly. Her mistaking on Logan, I guess, is okay, but Logan lives in North Carolina. She's a Southern belle, born and raised here. She was executed in South Carolina. I get it, but I tell you one thing: I did my homework before I went there. I knew who every witness was, and I knew every witness's story. Okay, because I wanted to make sure I was part of that team. Okay, I knew who Mary was. I knew who Mr. Campbell was. Okay, that wasn't my job to do, but everyone on that committee should have known exactly who each and every one of us was, and there was 95% of them that did, and 2 that really didn't.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that committee was for victims of violent crime, okay, especially with the repeat offenders. And right off the bat, it started about money and how the Trump organization wasn't giving them enough money, wasn't giving this. Well, you know what? Look yourself in the mirror first about your soft on crime laws. And then look at my daughter and look at Iryna. Worry about that first, because that's the most important. They participated in taking 2 beautiful women out of this world. They have blood on their hands, just like a lot of people in South Carolina.
You've kind of taken up a cause now. I mean, because you don't want Logan to have been killed in vain, or at least for her death to have been in vain. I mean, there was no excuse for what happened to her whatsoever. It was horrific and disgusting. But you want changes. So talk to me about what changes you want to see with these policies.
Well, look, we've got to, the only way I can put it is we have to blow up the system and start over. Okay. And this isn't rocket science. Okay. And I've said this and I'm going to keep saying this. Okay. Prisons are meant to be for people that cannot live in a lawful society. And yes, they're supposed to be put in prison so they can be rehabilitated. I will tell you this, 66% of people that come out of prison within 3 years are back in prison. Okay. In 6 years, that jumps up to about 78%. Okay. In 10 years, that jumps up to 83%. So if you take that time period, they're going to have to do more than 10 years in prison whenever you're sentenced. But the problem is, we'll never know if rehabilitation works in prisons because we don't put people in prisons anymore, and we don't put the right people in prisons anymore. Okay, if we don't have enough beds in prisons and cells, we need to build more prisons. We have to rehabilitate people. I personally don't believe most are rehabilitatable. I think that is their lifestyle. I think that's what they've chosen. It's a personal choice. Alexander Dickey made 39 personal choices, okay? And the 3-strike rule apparently went out the window and became a 40-strike rule, which nobody kind of clued me in, okay? He graduated every time he committed a crime, okay? There were crimes he used weapons in. Then he made a personal choice to literally, and I mean literally, execute Logan, okay? The evidence shows that he made her and forced her on her knees with her hands out in front of her up in the air, okay? And jammed a friggin' 12-gauge shotgun in her left rib cage underneath her left breast and pulled the trigger. That is a choice. That's not an accident. And this is the person that these judges let out on the street. We have one that let him out 3 times that he would have been doing 25 years for. Okay? It's going to come out. They can't deny it. They can't hide. It's public record. We'll have a list of every judge, every solicitor, every assistant solicitor, every sled mistake. The only positive thing about what happened to Logan, it's going to force change. It's going to force change.
This was a House Judiciary subcommittee. So Logan, obviously, she was murdered in South Carolina, but she's from North Carolina. So
Correct.
There's also a problem with what happened with her case on the state level and the county level in South Carolina. So what would you like to see done there? Because there can be changes at the federal level, but something needs to be done to fix what happened on the state and county level in South Carolina. And if I'm sure this is not the first time this type of weird mishap, stupid stuff has happened. You know, I'm sure it's happened in other communities and other states too.
Well, that's the beauty part of this. Our intention is to uncover everything, is to uncover how many of these possibly are out. Can you imagine how many Alexander Dickeys are out in the United States of America? Okay. And I'm just going to read something real quick that I'm going to start with. And it's just kind of some bullet points, and it's mandatory fingerprinting and complete record. You know, every arrest must include fingerprints, and it has to be confirmed. Accountability in plea bargains and probations. If you're giving plea bargains and probation, whoever's doing it has to be accountable for it. Okay. And oversight and communication, audits of these plea deals and communications with defendants, their attorneys, and everyone else, with the AG, with the assistant AG. All this stuff should have to be approved by people other than magistrate judges. And I'm sure there's a few magistrate judges that are really good. But imagine being an elected judge, what your really back goal is. Okay. You know, review of probation and early release programs. That's a big one, because Alexander Dickey was released early from a parole. Okay. He was supposed to do 5 years in prison. I think he did 411 days. And then he did another stint, but then was early released for compliance. And if he wasn't, Guess who he would have never met? I'll give you 3 guesses.
Logan.
Exactly. Okay. Then you look at a comprehensive background check and information sharing through all the states and all the communities and all the districts and all the counties. Everybody in the United States or in the world has to go through the FBI. When you get arrested, somebody should be able to put your name in a database and show your criminal resume from when you started until when you finished. That should be the base of whether or not you get released or whether you go to jail for the rest of your friggin' life.
Steve, I just want to go back to, like, how angry did it make you when basically the congresswoman didn't know the difference between Iryna Zarutska and Logan? I mean, I know it made you angry. I saw it. But obviously it just felt, I'm sure to you as a father, like this woman was just reading from a script potentially and not really invested in what was going on.
She disrespected my daughter. She made her feel like nothing. She made her feel like she didn't matter. And we weren't sure about bringing a picture, but I'm so glad I did because I found out the truth. I found out the truth that somebody that represents North Carolina first had no idea who Logan Federico was. And then on top of that, had no idea who Iryna was. How much Iryna has been on the news? Granted, Logan got no coverage whatsoever until now, until my interview with Trey Gowdy, okay? And you and other people. But Trey Gowdy really kind of kicked this thing off. But Iryna got coverage 2 weeks after the fact, which was 2 weeks too late, okay? But Iryna has been all over the news, all over the world news, and she didn't recognize her. And then for that to have a victim, Iryna's family wasn't even there. And then she knew. I emailed. We had to hand in a written statement. Okay, that was given, I assume, to all the committee members.
Mm-hmm.
And it was powerful. And it was Logan all over it. How can somebody, whether she wrote her statement or not, or whether her committee did, or the people that work for her, how can you not do your homework? How irresponsible can you be to neglect Logan Federico and not know who she is? She was just assassinated.
Steve, what is the status of the case with Alexander Dickey right now? I know that the last time we spoke, you were saying you want the prosecutor, the solicitor, to pursue the death penalty. So is that going to happen?
Well, I want to make something really clear. I think every punishment has to fit the crime. Okay, I'm not a rah-rah death penalty guy, and neither is my family, and neither is Team Logan. But what I want is this. I want the law to be followed. Okay, if this checks all the boxes, and I am told by many legal sources that this is probably one of the most powerful evidentiary cases for the death penalty around in a long time. Okay, so all I want is to follow the law, and the law dictates you ask for the death penalty. It goes to a trial, it goes to a jury. We'll have to live with whatever happens. But don't humiliate and embarrass my family and my daughter and disgrace her and disrespect her by not following the law because of maybe personal beliefs. I don't know. I haven't talked to anyone in the district, and that's okay. I think they're pursuing the case, and I'm sure we'll hear something soon. I'm hoping. Our attorney is great. He's on top of it. He's asked me to do my thing and make sure that Logan's name is out there, and that's what we're doing. So as of right now, I don't know where it stands, to be honest. But yes, we want the death penalty. I think this case warrants it.
Has the solicitor not been keeping you up to date, or have they been reaching out? And
No. I've made that perfectly clear. I haven't heard from Byron in 5 months. 5 months tomorrow. But look, I've also heard that they're working on it. They're gathering evidence and they're investigating, and I have to understand that. And I don't want to be disrespectful to anyone, and I know it's a tough task and it's a job. But I think the family just deserves a little bit more communication. Don't you? I think we kind of deserve to know where we stand. But at this point, if there hasn't been a decision made, then there's nothing really much to talk about, is there?
Who gave you those facts about what happened to Logan? Did the solicitor tell you about that, or did...
No. We met with Brian Sterling, and our attorney had to put a brief together because we want Brian Sterling to take the case over federally or an AG of some sort, and we were hoping Todd Blanche would get involved. But just before the meeting, I read the statement, which I didn't know any of that, which kind of blew me away. And listen, I understand why I wasn't told some of that stuff by some of the legal part of it, some of the officers. They're great men. They're protecting me, and I get it. And I understand that. I have nothing negative to say about the Lexington or Columbia Police Department. They were outstanding. But we found out that through that statement what exactly happened to Logan, and I really can't go into the details of it because obviously it's an open case. But finding out that what he did to her was absolutely heart-wrenching.
I'm so sorry.
And it was senseless. Honestly, Dick and I think, have developed a relationship that will stand the test of time. I consider him a friend. I think him and his staff, they just care about Logan. You could see it. You could see the fight. You could see when we met with Brian Sterling and his team, you could see how much work they put into their argument,
Mm-hmm.
So there isn't anybody else I would rather have on this thing other than him right now, to be honest with you. And I can't thank him enough for everything he's done up until this point.
Well, Steve Federico, I really appreciate your time. We will keep an eye on this. And again, I'm so sorry for what happened to Logan. It's just disgusting. She's such an innocent victim, and it was totally unnecessary and preventable. And I'm sorry.
Thank you so much. And I'm always here for you. But the more I get Logan's story out there, just realize this. This goes nationally and out throughout the world. Just imagine how many lives we can save together.
Yeah, definitely.
That's what we have to do. We have to do it together.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The solicitor, Byron Gibson, told a local news outlet that he has updated the family and their attorney. A trial date has not yet been set for Alexander Dickey. He's being held in the Richland County Jail. And that's it for this episode of Crime Fix. I'm Angenette Levy. Thanks so much for being with me. I'll see you back here next time.